My name's Byron Knight. Along with my partner and founder and the brewer, Logan Plant, we started Beavertown Brewery and Duke's Brewing Q. The project was started about 2 years ago when we got hold of a site, or I got hold of a site. And being from California, living in England now for 4 or 5 years, the site sort of dictated what it wanted to be, and it just sort of said it wanted to be a brew pub. What goes better with beer than barbecue? So it was going to be a brew house Q joint. So the big idea, I had no big visions of being a brewer, or no big desire. The project just sort of popped up. But I'm really happy to do it because I've been in the food and beverage industry for 29 years now. I met Logan because I was looking for somebody to collaborate with, somebody who is passionate about beer, which he definitely is. He's super passionate about beer. He's an ex-rock and roller, and decided to leave rock and roll so he could spend more time with his family, and thought, well, why not become a brewer? So that's what he did. He's a home brewer, and we took the project on, opened up a really good restaurant, brewed a little bit of beer. Based on the success of the on-trade, we were able to keep growing and expanding on the brewery, and now we're getting ready to go to a phase 2, which is take the brewery out of the restaurant, put it into its own space in Hackney Wick. Now, Beavertown Brewery, when we first started the preparations before we opened up the premise, I always thought that the best way to scale a brewery was to have your own outlet, because it's just the example I see in America all the time. So we went through all the things. We knew our outlet would be Duke's. We'd be able to sell beer there. So the worst case scenario, we'd have one place that was going to buy our beer. I didn't actually realize how big craft beer was going to become in the UK, you know, and how much it's growing at exponential numbers every year. When we first started this project 2 years ago, it started off, hey, you're just going to go fast through everything, aren't you? I spent a lot of money, you know, designing, thinking about the restaurant. Went to a big branding company. We thought that was the right thing to do when you start up a brand. You know, you go to a big branding agency. Took quotes from all kinds of people. People coming back with silly quotes. 26,000, 36,000 to do a logo and a brand. They'll give us a website too. Thanks for the value. And so this right here, which I didn't think was a bad brand, I thought it was actually pretty good. Represented in one company we used for, you know, somewhere in the tens of thousands. And it was a big chunk of our budget, you know, but we felt it was important that we did it and did it nicely. And then we had the bottle, which would be the website. Oh, they mess up. Okay. Yeah, go to the website. Cool. And they gave us a website, and they gave us the Beavertown Brewery, kind of rustic, all that good stuff, dropping down to some bottles. And, you know, I thought it was good. It looked all right. It felt decent. But it didn't really quite resonate with being craft, you know? So we really extended ourselves as a new company to spend a lot of money on something that we thought would give us a competitive edge. And I think it did on some levels, but at the end of the day, it didn't actually feel true to who we were. So craft beer, craft movement, craft anything, whether it's tech, artisan, anything you're doing, you've got to make sure. Why are you showing that picture?
Take that.
Take that. So we didn't really feel that it represented us fully, and it certainly didn't represent all the talent that was around just in East London in our own backyard. You know, my number one thing after being in this industry for so long is you've got to be passionate about whatever project you're behind. And if you're not passionate, then, you know, whatever, then don't do it. You know. I think I was complaining as a young man in a bar about how much my job was getting me down. I hadn't had a day off, and blah, 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 blah. And it was a drag bar. And somebody named Chandelier looked over at me and said, "Darling, would you just shut up? It's so boring. No one's forcing you to work there." And I went, "Oh, wow, okay. That's an eyeful. Absolutely right. I will never complain again." I quit 2 weeks later and found another job. Because you know what? No one is forcing me to do anything. I choose what I do. And right now I'm choosing to make some really good beer and start a really exciting company and a really exciting brand for the entree, which is Duke's, and a Beavertown Brewery, which is craft beer, and making beer that we're really proud of. As far as scaling up, you know, we are about as small as you can get. We're a step up from a home brew. 4 barrels, making it in the kitchen next to the smokers, gives us really limited reach and availability. But given the fact that we have people like Nick on board, giving us some technical support and really talented, enthusiastic people, I think maybe we have allowed our reach to go a little bit wider than we would have 10 years ago, 20 years ago, before all the technology, that a lot of other people are very interested in and helps. So it's fascinating to me to see that you have a product that can be so hands-on, so craft. There is no way to virtually make beer. Well, I mean, in the sense that it's got to be a product that's in your hand, you got to drink it at the end of the day, okay? So we could talk about it virtually, we can discuss it virtually, we can pontify, we can do all these different things about it, but we can't actually drink the product, and at the end of the day, you have to have a quality product in the bottle for people to enjoy. How fast does that message get out there? Well, that's something we kind of go on. Out the main brand, we started going with some of the alpha labels, which were always going to be experimental brews. This was our first alpha label. It's a really good friend of mine, Becky, who goes to one of my bars and drinks, and she did the artwork, and we thought it was amazing. Then we went down to the next one, which was this wonderful man, Nick's designs and drawings for our next alpha label, and that just started feeling more like us, And this is actually, I think, his coup de grace, his best label. Nick, would you talk a little about your art?
Okay, cool. Yeah, basically, my background before I came and worked for Beavertown was I was kind of doing editorial work straight out of uni, trying to make money, panicking. I also had like a restaurant job because I'd gone like, I'm an artist. Restaurants. So yeah, I did that. And through that, my friend James, who brews with these guys, was like, oh, we need a couple of bottle labels. Would you mind just kind of giving us one for this experimental label, which was actually this one. And I spent loads and loads of time on this one. And it was good and people liked it. But then the other one, the Skeletons one, was one they asked for afterwards because they're like, we actually need another one now. This one's pretty good. And that took me like no time at all. And that's the one that people really like. And that was a bit of an eye-opener working for these magazines, which I'd have to do redos for them over and over and show them things. And I'd show them little sketches, but they wouldn't, that wouldn't be the thing that they really enjoyed. But I think what I wanted to talk about with beer labels, it was really interesting coming to that, and beer in general, because beer is universal. Everybody loves beer. If you don't love beer, you don't love Jesus. So, this is the ethical society. We can say that here. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, beer's universal, and there's, it's age-old, and most beer has age-old design, like Truman beer, and all the kind of general brews that you have, like London Pride. It's very classical design. And trying to market something to people who like that sort of thing with kind of newer and kind of things that don't really look a lot like old beer labels is difficult, because you kind of take away from the classical value of it. But then there's the other side of it, where beer, interesting craft beers, like the kind of band that only you know about, and as soon as people start to get into them, then they become a little bit less popular. And you have to think about that a lot for your market, because you have kind of in Duke's, we have like the classical beer guys coming in, and they don't want to try the new stuff, they just want a best bitter, that's what they want. And then the guys, sometimes you can convert them, but then there's the other guys who come in and they're like, have you got anything new, what's the new stuff? It's really cool. And that's when the labels kind of come into play a little bit, because they'll see something in the fridge that'll kind of catch their eye. And it is nice seeing your work in the fridge. But I think that's really what I wanted to talk about briefly, is you have to be really careful. In all walks of craft and everything, is not alienating anybody and trying to get people to try new things with new ideas, but keeping the classic values, because most craft things come from that sort of thing to begin with. So yeah, I think that's me.
All right. Thank you, sir. So when I was approached to come and do this thing, scaling craft, where exactly do you go with it all? We had another gentleman who's also a brewer down with the Colonel, Jonah, who did another one of the alpha labels right at the same time that Nick did his, and we liked that work so much. It really resonated with Logan. Logan is very much about aesthetics, very much about how it represents the ethos of the company, which, I don't know, what the heck is the ethos of the company, but we enjoy it, that it feels like us. I mean, this was the bottle originally, and I think it's a perfectly good bottle, and I think it really worked for a lot of people, but at the end of the day, we thought this is going to be a better evolution to it. It speaks more about craft, it's a bit nostalgic, but then still rock and roll. And then we just kind of expand. So this is going to be the new branding. This isn't a branding seminar, but this will be the new brand for Beavertown Brewery. On top of that, we're going to still explore new artists and bring them in. That's going to be our next alpha label, which I think is pretty brilliant by a young local artist. Technology and growing as a company. You can only get as big as you can sell beer. I think without question it's fascinating, because technology has helped us have a bigger reputation than would ever in a gazillion years been possible, given how little our output is. 4 barrels It's 1,000 bottles a run. We can do that 3 times a week if we're lucky. 3,000 bottles of beer going out every week. And we sell it all as soon as it's made, and it's great. 10 years ago, nobody would have heard about us, and we would have been just supplying a few local pubs, and that would have been it. But in the span of less than a year, we have a reputation that has kind of grown to all kinds of things, because through social media and through technology, people have spoken about our beers, and they tweet about it, and it gets across to the point where Rate Beer listed us as the best new brewery in London. And I can't even figure out how something that's primarily an American app how we even come onto the radar for them. And I'm really pleased, and it's really happy. Does it mean anything? I don't know. How many Twitter followers we have, does it mean anything? I honestly don't know. We interact. Logan and James are really good about interacting with everybody on Twitter. I'm a bit of a Neanderthal. I'm 43. I just can't really care. I like my real friends. I have a hard time seeing my wife. The last thing I want to do is play around with a bunch of virtual friends who I might never meet. So that's where lovely young people like Nick come into play, and outsourcing all this stuff. At the end of the day, I want to hold something in my hand and I want to drink it. I want to serve customers food and beer and be in a festival and interact with them and get the immediate gratification. I guess I'm a bit selfish that way. I know I want somebody to put it in their mouth and like it. That's why I'm in food and beverage. That's why I've been in hospitality for so long. I work, 7 days a week. I take maybe a week off a year, and it's great. So how do we scale from here? This is our original. This is what we're doing right now: basement, brewing, and lots of grains. First thing to do is start to create more beer. How big do you go? I have no idea. Me and Logan are arguing constantly. So we have a 5-barrel plant now. Do we scale up to a 20-barrel? So that would be 20,000 bottles of beer in a run. Do we scale up to a 40-barrel, a 50-barrel? Brewdog, who's somebody, that's Logan and James. Brewdog, who started, I think people know this, Scottish brewery. We had a little standoff with them last night at one of their pubs. One of our beers against one of their beers, and we won. It was good. But it started off as a collaboration brew that we did. We went up to Scotland in November. The Brewdog guys are really aggressively expanding. They're opening up brew pubs, kind of where I started off with, knowing that having your own outlets for your product is a really essential element of a good business plan, in my opinion. They agree. They've opened up 10 pubs. They've opened up 2 pubs here in London. They came into ours, really liked ours, the owner, sat down, had dinner. We really hit it off with the owner, James, and he invited us to go up there and have a brew. Collaboration brews, they just keep things exciting, from a brewer's standpoint. I know for Logan and James, it was great just to go up there and play on the kit that they've built their company on, 30 barrels, and they run it 24 hours a day. They close Christmas Day and New Year's Day. Those are the only 2 days that Brewdog closes in the past 5 years. And they just run it 24 hours a day, 30 barrels at a time, bam, 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 and have got themselves become a worldwide player, which is great. And they liked us, so that was the first thing. I realized that doing a collaboration with somebody like Brewdog means that we get a lot more reach. Obviously, 5 barrels to 30 barrels, whatever beer we brewed there will get our name out, that much faster, right? Which is wonderful. More importantly, it's about developing a relationship. The brewery industry is, all in all, really a nice place. Everyone is very willing to talk, particularly the brewer's side. The marketing people, they can be pains in my ass, which I have to deal with primarily. But as far as the brewers go and the exchanging of ideas, it is without question a craft movement. It's a lot of artists trying to get excited, trying to keep themselves interested, making new products, arguing about the aesthetics. We have some old-time brewers in there, in the London Brewers Alliance, that just don't want to hear about all this fancy American hop and dry hopping and all that nonsense. But the rest of us just want to push the envelope and see how far we can go with flavors. This is our new website, which Nick is also in charge of and designing, which is really fun. And that should be coming online shortly. We'll see. We got a new brewery. It's going to be opening up a loose space in Hackney Wick. We're going to move the 5-barrel plant there with a lot more fermenters, and then we're going to put an order in for some bigger brewery. I think it's safe to go big. You know, I think with technology and all the social media and the way we have a reach that we could never have before, I'm not afraid of buying a massive brewery plant and scaling right the heck up. The beautiful thing about all this is that we're flying by the seat of our pants. You know, we're passionate about what we do. If we get the right people and the right advice and surround ourselves with equally as passionate people in the tech department, the marketing, the accounting, distribution, and collaborators, I don't see how you can fail unless, of course, you have a really bad drug habit. So, you know, there really is no way to fail in craft brewing. You make a bad product, no one's going to buy it at the end of the day. You make a product you're proud of, you know, I think people will be into it. So, thanks.
Thanks so much. Thanks, man.